Good day, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Military and Foreign Affairs Network. I am your host, the voice of reason. Today, we are continuing our ongoing coverage of the war between the Russian Federation and Ukraine. And before I start, just a note, I will continue coverage of the ongoing conflict between Israel, Hamas, possibly Hezbollah, aka the Party of God, and other actors. Again, as we watch that conflict, the Israelis have undertaken a systematic operation of airstrikes designed to completely destroy Hamas, while at the same time Israel continues mobilization and continues to prepare for a ground operation against Hamas in the Gaza Strip, and quite possibly further operations in the north near Lebanon. Now, back to Ukraine and Russia. The Russians, over the last 48 hours, have started a fairly significant offensive near Avdiivka, this locale here. As you can see, Avdiivka lies within a salient and or pocket of Ukrainian forces made up of the following units. We'll jump over to the military land map, and you can see here kind of what the Ukrainian military has in this area, and mainly the defense of Avdiivka falls on the 53rd Mechanized Brigade. There are also the 70th Separate Infantry Battalion. These man the fortifications in and around Avdiivka. And then to the north, you have the 110th Mechanized Brigade. And then further to the south is another infantry unit, the 142nd Infantry Brigade. But again, we are seeing some very intense Russian attacks taking place again over the last 48 hours. It does appear the Russians are conducting reconnaissance in force with multiple battalion battle groups both to the north and to the south. These units, 277th Rifle Battalion, we have Storm Z units, the 109th Rifle Regiment of the DPR, and there are other units as well of the Russian military that have been brought up for this operation. 33rd Guards Motorized Rifle Regiment, 255th Guards Motorized Rifle Regiment, 1st Separate Motorized Rifle Brigade of the Sloviansk Brigade, the 9th Marine Corps Brigade. Now that is not a Russian naval infantry unit. I do believe that is a organic Novorossiya unit within Donetsk that has been raised. So again, you see a combination of Russian forces, but again, the Donetsk forces, those Novorossiya forces, are now essentially part of the Russian military. We think for the most part they have been fully integrated into the Russian military organizational of command for operations against the Ukrainians. But again, we continue to see very, very heavy airstrikes. We continue to see maneuver units of the Russian military attempting to attack Ukrainian forces. The Ukrainians report that they have withstood these Russian attacks, and the Russians have made no ground. The Russians are not saying very much about what is happening other than continuing the ongoing offensive operation. So it's very difficult at this point to ascertain what's really going on the ground. We do know there is obviously heavy fighting ongoing, and the Russians continue this pressure campaign. This looks very reminiscent of what occurred near Bakhmut. A very systematic pressure campaign by the Russian forces to degrade, reduce, and then destroy Ukrainian forces in these pockets that are created by the Russian military. The Russians have moved up quite a bit of heavy artillery, multiple launch rocket systems, and undoubtedly these Ukrainian forces are under persistent attack day in and day out. Again, if you look at the length of this pocket, the width of this pocket that has been created, if you go from the gray zone, or let's go from the actual where the Russians are believed to be operating from the north to the south, you're looking at 8 kilometers. So the Russians can hit anything in this pocket at any point, to include the use of 120 millimeter mortars and basically any artillery system that the Russians possess. They are able to hit targets in Avdiivka. It's a very difficult situation for the Ukrainians, and I would imagine the Ukrainians are starting to fear that those units that are going to be defending at Avdiivka are going to be used in the same manner as the units defending Bakhmut. At the end of the day, did Bakhmut drain Russian forces? It did, but at the same time, it also drained Ukrainian forces as well. And I would beg to differ that the Ukrainians are taking far less casualties than what the Russians are. Again, just the nature of this positional battle in which the Ukrainians are dealing with a double envelopment operation. They have Russians to the north, Russians to the south, Russians to the east, and are under threat to be completely encircled. So a very difficult situation for those Ukrainian forces. We continue to see in the south the Ukrainians attempt probing attacks south of Orikhiv. Again, we're not seeing wide-scale offensive operations by the Ukrainians, more or less probing attacks by the Ukrainians. Probably not as large-scale of an offensive operation than what's currently going on in and around Avdiivka as we speak. But nonetheless, fighting continues in these areas as well. Russians continue to attack airfields, continue to launch deep penetration strikes in excess of 70 to 100 kilometers behind Ukrainian lines against opportunistic targets, again, such as airfields and other sensitive military targets. So that's where we set for today. We will continue to monitor what is happening on the ground. As always, thank you for joining us. More to come very, very soon. And as always, have a good day.